Hi guys, so in today's video I'm going to be taking a quick look at snares and how I add snares into my tracks, how I layer them, and what effects and stuff I will add to the snares. So here I've got a simple loop here, a kick, a hi-hat and just a dry snare. So one of the things that is very popular in 80s style music was the gated snare. So I'm going to show you what that is. So if we add reverb to a snare, so what we've got here is the dry snare. Now I've added reverb to this snare and then I've mixed it down so you can hear the full reverb on the snare. So as you can see, the tail goes on quite a bit. Now what the gated snare does is you apply reverb to it, and then once it reaches a certain point, the gate kicks in and the gate lets nothing past that volume, so in essence it mutes the rest of it. So one way to show you this, so let's we've got the snare here. So what will happen is the gate will allow the sound to play, then at a certain point it just cuts it off completely. So in essence it could sound like this. So if I say, for example, so what the gate is actually doing to the volume is at a certain point, when it reaches the threshold, it just mutes it. So in theory, this is what will happen. The gate will allow the volume to play, and then once it reaches a certain threshold, it will then mute the rest of it. So this is where you can manually sort of build the gate, and then you can just choose at what point it cuts off. So what you've got is something that sounds like this. So again, instead of it having a full reverb, we're actually cutting it off. Okay, so what I'm going to show you on this one here is actually how the reverb and the gate works, building it together. Okay, so this is on track 8. So we just highlight the snare, just loop the snare. There's a dry snare. Add the reverb on, and then we add the gate. So let's have a look at what the gate is doing. So as you can see, when the volume hits here, anything that's quieter than this gets muted out. So it'll only play or only allow anything above this volume to come through. So the dark blue is what's actually getting muted out. So you'll have this. So again, there's two ways in which you can add sort of the 80s sort of style to the track. You've got the manual, where you just mix it down with the reverb and then manually cut it wherever you want. You've got the actual way using plugins. Now another way you can do it is just by adding a reverb with a short tail. So if I go back to the reverb, what we've got here is we've got this vintage verb. And in FL Studio there's two different ways you can do it. You can just add the reverb to the actual track, and then obviously at a zero mix you get nothing, and at 100% it's full reverb. So you adjust it to what sounds comfortable for you. Now all this is a preset on the gated reverb, and this is medium, and then what I've done is just added a bit more snare to it. A bit more, decay. Now another way you can do it if we turn it off is we have the send channel. So on this one here, track 100, I've added another vintage reverb, but this time it's 100%. It's the same setting, 100%. And then what we can do is we click on the snare channel, and then we slowly dial it in. So that's how you can add reverb to your tracks. Okay. Well, what I'm going to show you over here is I'm going to show you how to add a little bit of bite to the top of the snare. So let's get this simple loop going again, and this time we'll just add just a normal reverb in. Okay, that's good. And then what we'll do this time, we'll just add some synths and stuff in to get the feel of the track. So what I'm going to do is add some bite. So what I've done here, I've just loaded up Sylinth, just gone to Init, preset, I've changed this over here to white noise. I've then added some decay onto the track. Everything else is exactly the same, so what you get is you get this. I then added a bit of reverb to it, brought the dampness down, the size down, and the dryness down. Then we just put that in over the top. So this is without it, and then with it. As you can tell, it just gives it a bit more of a bite on the top. Okay, so what I'm going to look at now, I'm going to actually pull up some of my tracks that I'm currently working on. I'm going to show you the snares in there. Some are layered, some aren't layered. But again, I'll show you my process and how I go about adding snares in. Okay, so this is one of the tracks that I'm working at the moment called Nowhere to Run. I'm going to show you the snares. Now, I actually got 3 snares in this, so I've layered 3 snares together. So I'll quickly give you a preview of the track, and then we'll get on to looking at the snares. Okay, so let's have a look at the snares then, just by themselves or with the kick. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll turn off all the effects that we currently have on the snares and the second snare as well. I'll just play the 3 snares to you. So we've got snare number 1, snare number 2, and snare number 3. I went all together. And with the kick. So the first 2 snares I've assigned to one channel here, and the second snare I've assigned to this channel, but then I've routed it back in. No, I've not actually routed it back in, I've just left it completely routing straight to the master. Now all I've done on this, on the top snare, is I've just added EQ. Now there's not a lot of highs in this anyway, so I've just added a boost here around 8,500 and just rolled off some of the lows. This snare, all I'm really wanting from this snare is this end of it, is this up here, just to give it a little bit extra, a bit more character. So if we look at the other 2 snares we've got, what I've done is I've added reverb into this one here now. Again, medium gate setting, down to about 38%, and I've just added a bit more decay to it. What I've also done, I've also added this CLA drums. What I've done with this, I've added some upper bass to it. I've added a bit of bite to it, a bit of compression, but I've dragged that down. And then the other two features I'm not using. So without it. And then on top of this, I've added an EQ where I've just boosted at around 140 Hz and then rolled off anything below it. And this is where the snare actually hits, so I'll just give it a bit more definition down that. And then when you play that with the top snare, we've also done here towards the end, I've just added a little pattern here to help me move on to the next part. Now, my last video that I did, I looked at toms. This can also be a neat trick as well. So all I've done here is added an extra couple of notes in at the end of the snare. And what you get then is you get this. Okay, so I'm going to move on to another example now. Okay, so I've got another example here. This track is another track I'm working on called Changes. So I'll just play a sample of it again and then we'll get into the snare. Okay, so take a look at this snare. So this is the dry snare. Now, this is not layered. Sometimes less is more. You don't need to layer every single snare 5 or 6 times. I like this snare. So I've just added a little bit of processing to it, and I think it sounds great just by itself. So what I've done is I've added some reverb to it. Then an EQ, and all I've done with this EQ is cut out some of the low end so it's not interfering with the bass and the kick. So I've done very, very little to this snare. Like I said, less sometimes is more. And then again, I've done the same here in the other one. I've added a little bit of a pattern towards the end of the snare. This time I've used pitch as well. So it sounds like this. So when you play that in the mix, you get this. Okay, so just take a look at one more example now. Okay, so now to the final example. This is a track I'm working on called Miami Heat. So I'll just play you a bit of it. So onto the snare. So this is in 2 parts, both routed to the same mixer. Insert. So I've got this snare. Again, let's make this dry. And I've laid it with this. This is actually a VST called Ali James Labs. It's very, very good. It simulates the old Simmons sounding stuff. It gets plenty of well, we won't play them, but there's plenty of decent sounds in this. And I've just added a little bit on top of this. Just a great sounding drum machine. And then when you play them two together. So what I've done to this again, reverb. And I've also added a compressor onto this as well. Very, very light compression on there. Just mixes it, but just glues them both together pretty well. So again, not a lot's been done to this, just a couple of snares together, a bit of compression, a bit of reverb, no EQ on this at all, although I may add EQ later on. So one final thing I'm going to show you now is just a little effect you can do with snares. So this is just a reverse snare, very similar to what I did yesterday with the crash. So you've got a snare here. All you do is just hit the reverse, cut off the very, very end, drag it along, and you've got yourself a nice little effect. Okay, so that about does it for this tutorial. And what I will do as well, again like I did yesterday, I will add some snare hits. I'll make a little sample pack for you, throw a couple of snares in, and I'll leave a link in the description so you can download and use away. Okay, so that's about it. Thanks for watching.